Connection Hour. And during the month of May, we've been holding a special speaker series for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Our guest speaker today is Frank Nguyen of Academic Coffee in San Jose. If you have any questions or comments, please type them in the chat and we'll be more than happy to respond to them. We can take questions or comments in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. For more information about our programs, please visit www.sjpl.org. And here we go, let's get Frank going. And oh, sorry, this Saturday, we have a special tree planting event at Hillview Branch Library. You can see in the slide in front of you. It will be this Saturday, May 21st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Hillview Branch Library.
There's going to be food and refreshments and dancing. It's going to be awesome. Yes, and here's Frank.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to speak with you all. So my name is Frank. I'm the owner of Academic Coffee, and we're approaching 5 years now in downtown San Jose, which has been amazing. And before we started the cafe, it was a pop-up for about a year. So all in total, getting close to 6 years doing this now. And it's been a journey. It's been a journey, as is most small businesses from the past couple of years. So when I first started Academic Coffee, there was just really two things I was really focused on. One was quality, and quality means quality of ingredients, quality of the people that we work with. And that goes into sustainability. From day one, we were using not only the best ingredients, but we try to keep everything sustainable and compostable too. So we've been using all compostable products for almost 5 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit too. And the other thing that we really focused on was community from day one. So even before we opened up our doors, and I was still in the pop-up, we were doing pop-ups for a lot of small events. Whenever a friend was doing a fundraiser or worked in a nonprofit, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm happy to show up and make coffee for folks. So we were donating our coffee services during our early pop-up days. And community is something that happens organically, but it can also be intentional too. And I'll be sharing some stories about that as well. And what I wanted to share today is something that I've been working on with Oatly. So Oatly is I think one of the biggest oat milk companies out there. I think pretty much every cafe is if you've been to like any cafe in the Bay Area, you've probably seen Oatly, but they're an oat milk company. And at the end of last year, we were actually awarded this grant by Oatly. And so what they were doing was that they were looking for folks that were focused on sustainability in the coffee space. And so we submitted an application, and I think they said a couple hundred coffee shops and businesses in the country applied. And we were like the winner for California, which was kind of cool. They really liked all the little things that we were doing, so they wanted us to. We're collaborating to share those stories. So our project Oatly is to highlight all the little things that we're doing in sustainability, to share those stories. And hopefully either inspire or help other small businesses, put their, dip their toes into sustainability as well. With that said, I'm gonna share my screen here. All right, cool. So,
do you mind? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Can you define sustainability?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So sustainability is such a buzzword right now that everyone says, and there's a lot of greenwashing by small businesses and big businesses and everybody who says I'm sustainable. For me, sustainability just means reduce, reuse, and recycle, and also composting now. But for me, sustainability started like when I was growing up. I was like in high school. I was in my school's, we call it the ecology club, and we would go out, do park cleanups, do recycling projects and stuff like that. So it's been a part of my life for a long time. But for defining sustainability, it's consciously reducing your carbon footprint, and recycling, reducing, and minimizing waste in any way possible. I just spoke to some folks at Oatly this week actually, and they kind of asked me a similar question, because sustainability is like more than just a word. It's really like a movement and a choice. And Oatly asked me, okay, what's one thing about sustainability do you want to share with people? And I was like, you know what? That's the thing. There isn't one thing, like sustainability isn't like you do one thing and you're done. And it's like, hey, I'm sustainable. I did this one thing. Sustainability is really an ongoing process of doing a lot of small things constantly every day. You can't just recycle one day. You have to recycle every day. And you have to compost every day, or you're consciously making these decisions all the time. It's like, for me, it's like asking like, how do you be a nice person? And it's like, okay, I did this one thing today, I'm a nice person. But for me, it's like, you've got to be nice all the time. It's like a conscious effort. So for me, sustainability is like, is a lot of small things that you do every day on an ongoing basis. And that's how you really start making like a sustainable movement happen. It's like small things every day to create that tidal wave moving forward, and not just a one-time event. So that's why I started this website actually, with Oatly's help. And it's called startlocal.xyz. So Start Local XYZ. And it's to, help businesses become more sustainable by taking small steps every day and starting local. And I had the idea to start this because people actually reach out to me all the time. So we use all compostable products. So all our takeout materials are compostable. And all our packaging is compostable. And there's actually a lot of discussion about this because depending on what city you live in, there may or may not be commercial composting available. And depending on what city you live in, the city actually may require small businesses to use compostable products or not use compostable products. San Jose is like a special city where we're in a category that neither apply to. So San Jose does not have commercial composting, and it also does not require it. So anybody that does it in San Jose, it's purely by choice. And it's tough. It's becoming like an increasingly more difficult choice to make, obviously, because of supply chains and the cost of goods going up. So what I did with this website is that I kind of shared all our secrets. People are always asking like, oh, where did you get this compostable cup? It's like sold out everywhere. Or I didn't know that they made compostable coffee stoppers, where it's like you stick the little stopper into the lid so that it doesn't spill the coffee. So people were sending me emails and DMs all the time, and I started sharing all those things because if it's a choice that someone's making, I want to help them make that choice. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, I don't want to share where I'm getting everything because they might run out. I'm happy to help promote that. So part of this website has a little section for small business resources. And I just pretty much put it all out there. So if anybody wants to look for compostable or biodegradable products, this is where I'm getting the majority of my stuff from. And on top of that, there's actually a few more that I haven't had a chance to upload into here yet. But you know, I'm like an open book. If someone's looking for something that's sustainable or, you know, biodegradable, I'm happy to help. Yeah, it's all out here in the internets for people to look at. But I wanted to share this website also because I started putting together a list of all the things that we do to help people get ideas on sustainability, or ways to you know, renew. And there's a lot of benefits around sustainability too. Like, you know, obviously the environmental benefit, but you know, obviously cups, packaging, all of that stuff is more expensive when you're using compostable or biodegradable. But when you start reusing and renewing, there's a ton of cost savings. Like, for example, in our business, we don't buy any packaging. So if someone's ordering coffee from our website and we are shipping coffee to somebody, we're actually reusing a lot of the packaging that comes into us. Running a coffee business is actually one of the most wasteful industries to be in because of the number of packaging and materials that everything arrives in, from, you know, the coffee beans to the cups to everything. So we reuse all our packaging. So I started collecting all these stories to give people ideas on how to be more sustainable. And you know, like I mentioned, in the city of San Jose, it's a choice. San Jose doesn't require composting, whereas whereas San Francisco, San Mateo, Berkeley, all our surrounding neighbors do require it. Like, takeout materials must be compostable. But you know, there's a few reasons why I chose it. You know, one is that versus plastic, you know, even if it's not commercially compostable, a compostable product will still break down faster in the environment than a non-compostable product. But I think what's been interesting in the past, you know, couple years that I've noticed is that because of supply chain issues, non-compostable products are getting more expensive, also at a faster rate. So over time, the delta between a non-compostable product and a compostable product, that gap is closing. So you know, I'm hoping that because of that, people are gonna want to think about being compostable more if a compostable product is just a little bit more expensive versus being a lot more expensive. And I'm kind of using our blog here a little bit just to share our stories, but it just kind of gives an idea of all the little things that we're doing. A couple years ago, we started a Growler program with Academic Coffee. You can come in, get a growler, we fill it up for you. And you know, things that, you know, people might not be thinking about is that we started doing a trade-in program where, you know, you can bring in your growler, and if you bring it back, we'll give you a 10% discount. Given how things are getting so expensive, like the cost of growlers has skyrocketed. So what we did was, you know what, let's just incentivize people even more to bring back their growlers. So we increased the discount even more, and it makes sense because it's still less expensive than buying a brand new growler. So, you know, being sustainable, like renewing, reusing, reducing it, you know, you can save some expenses as a small business. And one thing I want to talk about is, recycling. Recycling is really interesting because there's a ton of resources out there, and what I discovered was that less than 10% of all plastic is actually recycled, and that's kind of like a really sad statistic, but that's one of the main reasons why we're choosing to go compostable too. Even if things are labeled as recyclable, a lot of plastic ends up not being recycled. So, during the pandemic, a lot of people started doing like large format beverage drinks where they're putting it in growlers. But if growlers aren't available, people are filling it in like these plastic jugs and bottles. And a lot of that can't be recycled. So one of the projects that we started looking into was canning. And we are going to be releasing our cans in about a week or two. And here's like a little sneak peek of what that looks like. But the thing about cans is that aluminum, the majority of all aluminum is actually recycled. It's much easier to recycle aluminum, and the value of aluminum is a little bit higher. That's why it has a high recycle rate. So majority of all aluminum is recycled, and less than 10% of plastic is recycled. So, whatever the options are, always choose almost anything else over plastic. And another project that we're doing, here's a snapshot here. Another project that we're doing is reusing and repurposing. So we try to be as close to zero waste as possible. So everything that we do, and we call it like our closed waste loop initiative, where almost everything we do is either composted, recycled, or reused. And when we get our raw coffee beans in, they come in these like burlap coffee bags. We actually give them away to our customers. So it's actually available on our website. You can order it for free, like the price is $0, and you can come in and pick it up. You can always ask our baristas if we have any available. We give it away for free. And people have been doing some cool projects with it, like making surfboard covers, making dog beds. And then on top of that, I already mentioned that we're like recycling the packaging. But when coffee and equipment comes in, they tend to come in on these like wooden crates or pallets. We actually started saving all of those and repurposing them. So we have a lot of recycled stuff in our shop that people may not even notice. So if you're in our shop, you'll see like our shelves. Those shelves are actually like recycled. Like if you took a close look at those shelves, there'll be like weird holes and shapes in them. But we cut them up into shelves, we painted them, and then we mounted them. So a lot of repurposing going on. And if you see here, this is actually a little laser cutter that we have, and we're making signs out of them. But the wood that we're using, that's all salvaged from the shipping material that came into us. So we just fired up our laser printer, and we'll be seeing a lot more of this. But it's a great way to like reuse, repurpose, and renew. The cost of materials is so expensive right now. If you went to Home Depot and bought like a giant sheet of plywood, it's like $100. And then here we are getting all these like wooden pallets and shipping boxes coming in that are just, most people are just throwing out. So we're making a ton of signs for them, and that's one of our other renewable projects. But we try to create as little trash as possible. So we're either going to reuse something and call it upcycled, or we're going to compost it. And that kind of takes us to like another project that someone encouraged me to share about, because this is something that we've been doing for 6 months, but I never thought to share the story because, for me, community happens like organically. And so I don't think about it. It's kind of like an ongoing thing. And someone was like, hey, you should, talk about it. It sounds really interesting. So our community project right now, and I didn't even call it a community project. We were just doing it for fun. But someone was like, hey, this is like a really cool story. So it's called Friends Space. And that's on this left-hand side right here. But what Friends Space is that it's our pop-up space that's in front of Academic Coffee. So during the pandemic, the city created this program called Alfresco that allowed you to do outdoor seating and turn parking spaces into parklets. We applied for a permit, and they gave us like these 2 parking spaces that was in front of our cafe. And there was actually a parklet that was in front of a vacant storefront. And we asked the city if we could repurpose it. And so they allowed us to repurpose it. So the parklet was just moved from like an empty part of downtown to our shop. And, we were using it for outdoor seating, but I had the idea to invite makers and artists to come out and do pop-ups in our patio space. Because I was like, you know what, we've got enough room to have somebody out here. So we started hosting pop-ups like 6 months ago. And then we started getting a lot of interest where people were like, hey, can I do a pop-up there? And now we've got a waiting list of pop-ups every weekend. And it's like a really nice way to, one, pay it forward because I started as a pop-up. And then 2, it's like a really nice way to, create community. We got this nice like weekend market vibe going on. And, my hope is that, a lot of the pop-ups, they tell me that, hey, I sold out. It was a great weekend. And my hope is that, we're providing the space for free. We help out with like tents and tables that we have available too. Like if we have anything available that we're not using, we're like, hey, you're welcome to use the tent this weekend. You're welcome to borrow our tables and chairs. And I hope that some of these places, end up, being a little incubator and growing into their own small business one day. That would be awesome. And we've hosted a ton of fun pop-ups that kind of like fit into our sustainability mindset as well. So pictured here is Jay's Closet, which is like a vintage pop-up. And then there was another pop-up called Glass Refillery recently that they provide like soaps and lotions and all this other stuff, but you bring your own containers to refill so that it's like zero waste. But yeah, those are the projects that we're doing. And I'll be sharing more little things here because the amount of stuff that we do, it sounds like a lot, but it's a lot of little things. And that's, my point. My point is that, sustainability is just like a lot of little things that you do on an ongoing basis. In the past, we've given our compost to Vegilution. We've given our compost to our city forest. It's just a lot of little things that we do all the time. We also have like a plant pop-up that's inside of our cafe. And what we do with them is that we have a little promotion going on where if you bring back your compostable coffee bag, then you get a little discount on your plant purchase. And then what our friend does with the compostable coffee bag is that she'll actually put like seedlings and little plants in there. And then you just plant the coffee bag with the little seedling or plant in there into the dirt and it'll decompose altogether. Because our coffee bags are biodegradable. So slight difference between biodegradable and compostable is that compostable usually means like a commercial composting facility. And then biodegradable is like, you can just stick it in your like food scrap pile and it'll break down in like 6 to 9 months. But yeah, it's just a lot of little things that happen on an ongoing basis. And now we've got like a nice community of supporters, and we've got a nice, sustainability like system going on. Yeah. I see a little chat bubble that I'm going to open up, but yeah, the recycling rates between plastic and aluminum are super, super shocking. You know, I always heard that plastic was bad, and I'll be honest, what led me down the rabbit hole was that I was watching an episode of John Oliver, and he did an episode on recycling rates and uncovering the truth about it. And then I actually, you know, on our website, I actually cited a couple resources, but the statistics are out there, and it's true. Recycling is just really difficult because with plastic, you have to remove a lot of the impurities that come with the labels that are on it and whatever the plastic container was used for. So it becomes much more difficult to separate and recycle. You know, whereas aluminum is like, it doesn't have those challenges because it's a different type of material. And then on top of that, it's a highly incentivized material too. I mean, people are always collecting cans. Yeah, I mean, I know I just kind of talked a whole lot about like all our little projects and things that we're doing on an ongoing basis. Would be happy to you know, answer any questions or talk about anything a little bit more, depending on what folks out there might be interested in. One other thing that we're doing also is that you know, I hate throwing things away because I hate being wasteful. That's how I was raised. So I have like an excess of packaging materials right now, and so one of the new projects that we're doing also is that for our ongoing pop-ups that we have in our space, we're actually going to make signs for them using our laser cutter and using the repurposed salvaged materials that we have too. So you know, just another way of kind of like, you know, helping out other small businesses. So since we have these resources, and it doesn't really cost us money, it's just really my time to volunteer to make signs for folks. So that's something that, you know, I'm doing as well.
Hey, Frank, I have a question. What were, like, during the past 2.5 years, or the beginning of COVID, how were you able to keep the shop open, or, you know, do things like, what are some of your, I don't know if they're secrets, but what are some of the ways you were able to just keep open and serve the community and make sure that workers were able to still work?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question because it almost feels like another universe away from today versus back then. It's just everything has changed so much. But you know, one thing that I do is that we've always put our people first. And so as soon as I heard the news, you know, the first thing I did was made sure our team had like the supplies that they needed, because as soon as the news broke out that you know, shelter in place was happening, stores were sold out of stuff everywhere. So the first thing I did was I talked to our cafe suppliers, because the grocery store is very different from like our wholesale distributors. Customers weren't lining up for those folks. So I was able to get food, I was able to get groceries, toilet paper, all that stuff. And I made like an emergency supply bag for our entire team. That was what we did on like day one. So I think because I've always prioritized taking care of my team, we had relatively good morale during this time. And we were all looking out for each other. So the team really kept their spirits up during this time and held it together. So, and I think that's partly because we take care of them too. So it was kind of like, you know, people always talk about like, oh yeah, it's like a family. And I think for us, you know, I really felt that. So I think that was important. And then what happened right after that was, you know, I had the thought to extend that to our customers too, because we still had like our core customers that were still coming in and supporting us. And they're like, man, it's really hard getting these things. And so, I had the light bulb where like a month into it, we kind of turned into a grocery store almost, where I started like getting all these things like hand sanitizer, gloves, bleach, groceries. And we were getting like really good groceries because our restaurant supplier also supplies to like really nice restaurants. Like they're the same produce distributors that will like deliver to Manresa, the restaurant, or other highly rated restaurants. And so we were getting like super outstanding produce in our store and just getting that to our customers at a really good cost. So we made it through the first few months by being a grocery store and having the support of our really great customers. And then a year into it, when things were still being pretty tough, and we're like, wow, it doesn't look like it's going to end. That's when we started repurposing stuff. So we ended up doing like a mini garage sale almost, where since since everything was to go, we started selling all our plates and ceramics. So pre-pandemic, we were almost primarily like a for here type of restaurant. People would come in, sit down, we'd have plates and cups that were nice, and we sold all of that. And that got us through a few more months. But yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was definitely a tough time, but I think the community that we had, they came out, and it was really special. It was really special because for people, most of our customers worked downtown, and since they weren't working from downtown anymore, they were working from home. And they would come in and they would say, hey, I'm working from home, but I wanted to come in and support you guys, because if I ever do come back to the office, I want you to still be there. And I think that really meant a lot to all of us. I think what part of my years or childhood prepared me for this type of work, prior to working in a coffee shop and being in the food industry, my family has always been like a small business kind of family. So my my mom used to have a nail salon, and so I kind of grew up in the back of it, and I would like be doing like random things like counting stock or packaging stuff for her, and it was kind of like a do whatever it takes kind of attitude. So that was like my upbringing. But then I worked in marketing for a number of years as well, in a super wide variety of companies, and the mindset was always kind of like be agile, be nimble. So I think that kind of got me through the past few years, where it was a constant. I mean, the biggest catchphrase is pivot, but it was a constant evolution in the past couple of years of always doing something different to kind of make it through. And so our cafe is almost like unrecognizable from where we were a few years ago. And now what we're trying to do is, how do we change it back to what the feeling we wanted to convey was. But yeah, my type of work has always been be flexible, be open-minded, and adapt. So that's what we've done. Oh, that's a great suggestion. That's something that I've been thinking about, figuring out ways to do of like, having like educational programs for sustainability. But I think, I think one of the easiest things to do would be to start with composting, just because, I think home composting is becoming a trend, and there's so many great organizations in San Jose that could potentially collaborate with. And I already mentioned Vegelution and Our City Forest, but they might be great partners in like maybe even hosting a little educational class. One of the things I learned about recently was that you can't put coffee compost into everything. So coffee compost is great, and a lot of people like our compost because the majority of our coffee is either certified organic or it's been or it's from a farm that isn't certified yet, but they're in the process of being certified, or we know that they don't use additives, but they just haven't gotten the final paperwork yet. But coffee is acidic, and some flowers like it more than others. Some vegetables like it more than others, and some don't like it at all. But that would just be like a great, like, fun educational stuff. And I can't speak for all kids, but some kids like playing in dirt, so it's kind of like a fun way to like engage kids and adults too, and teach them like, hey, if you like these flowers, then this is the right ones for compost. Or if you like, I think carrots are good with coffee compost. I think hydrangeas are good with coffee compost. But it's really super fascinating to know which ones like it and which ones don't.
Got another question here. I'm going to read it. It says, love to hear how you've adapted during these historic times, and what are some of the biggest challenges you see in the coming months? That's from David.
Oh yeah, so the biggest challenge is definitely supply chain, and that's for anybody that is working with any type of consumer physical product. And that's one of the reasons why I even just put it out there to put these resources in, and I don't mind at all sharing with people, because I'm always community over competition, and I've said that a bunch of times too in the past, where like people are always like, oh, what's better? I'm like, you know what, it's all about community over competition. And supply chain is the biggest challenge right now. So you might see that consumer inflation is up about 8%. It was almost 9% at one point, and now it's closer to 8%. But that's only the consumer inflation, which is what customers pay at the end of the day. On the business side, wholesale inflation and durable goods inflation, we're looking at like easily closer to 30%. It's astronomical right now. I just had a friend call me about coffee last week, and was like, hey, I just got quoted a 100% increase in the price of my green coffee, which is like the unroasted coffee. And I freaked out. I was like 100%. I started making a couple phone calls just to confirm. But in the specialty coffee side, which is like the higher graded coffee, the quote unquote, like specialty coffee is like 6% of the market. And yes, it's skyrocketing right now. So we have coffee planned out to a certain extent, but we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with this new price increase? How are we going to work with it? Like, what can we absorb and what can we do with a price increase? But supply chain is a huge challenge, especially when you're working with like higher end ingredients, and also with trying to be sustainable using sustainable products. But that's definitely the biggest challenge. And there are projections right now that there may be a huge wave of small businesses that may close if this keeps up. Right now, all these businesses are already absorbing all the costs because they're afraid of losing customers if they raise their prices. And some industries are even actually operating at a loss right now because they're hoping that the cost will come down, and it may or may not come down. We don't know, but yeah, it's definitely scary for everybody in the restaurant industry right now.
Are there things you think the community can come together to kind of like help ease that burden? right? Because I love you're sharing the stat of inflation, right? But inflation is shared by everyone. So, how does the community come together and try to address that?
That's a, that's a good question. And I don't know if there's necessarily a way to address inflation right now. One thing that I am exploring is that I'm collaborating with some of our inventory purchases, because if you're a small business, there's no way you can compete with Starbucks, who can say, you know what, let me buy 1,000,000 cups if you can get me a better price. And a small business is like, okay, if I buy 1,000 cups, can you give me a discount? It's like, and that example isn't even big enough of an example, because I said 1,000,000 and 1,000 is really like 1 billion. But I am collaborating with other small businesses right now on inventory. Like, I'm talking to folks and I'm saying, hey, do you want to buy a bunch of cups with me, like that are compostable, and we'll be able to get a better discount on it. I am talking to a couple folks in the specialty coffee industry right now, where I'm like, hey, we are trying to serve this super premium product. I see that you're working with this farm. I'm working with that farm too, but we're buying this instead of that. Can we coordinate and maybe save on shipping or save on something? So there is some collaboration going on. But from a customer standpoint, I don't know how consumers might be able to help, because I know consumers are hurting too. It's like you go to the grocery store and you see everything more expensive, and it's like a burden by all, but it affects businesses a little bit more differently. So I think one thing I'll advocate for is more businesses collaborating, because I think we can help each other out. And hopefully by doing that, we can insulate the customer side a little bit more. But
Yeah, I love that.
Those are really good questions.
Is there like an opportunity to, I guess I'll call it a coffee tasting, right? Because I'm a huge fan of coffee. I want to try all different kinds, but I don't want to drive to 6 different stores to do that. I guess that's just one of the things that I'm trying to think about. Like, I unfortunately have never been to academic coffee, so I need to change that. And yeah, I would love to hear like what, as one person in the community, what I can do to kind of help make that a reality.
Well, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And that's something that we're actually doing soon, and we've done in the past too, but we've actually hosted other coffee shops at our cafe, and we do roast our own and we serve our own. But now recently we've collaborated with a couple folks to like have a coffee tasting at our place. And I think we're going to be doing more of that in the future, because I think our strategy is, instead of trying so we try to provide a wide variety of coffee so that we can appeal to the dark roast drinkers, the medium roast drinkers, the blends, the single origins. And for academic, we're going to probably narrow our focus a little bit more so that we can manage inflation a little bit better, and then collaborate with other folks that specialize in coffees that we like, but we don't have, the purchasing power for that. So we are going to be doing that in the future. And we'll probably host that at our cafe this summer. And something that happened in the past in San Jose, but hasn't happened since the pandemic, was that San Jose used to have its own coffee festival, and I would love to see that come back too. But if people start saying, hey, let's bring the coffee festival back to San Jose, that might be kind of a cool thing. But we'd probably need a lot of community support to bring that back.
I have a question, and also just a comment. I put it in the chat, but I'll read it out. I think coffee tasting events are so cool. That sounds awesome. I'd love to do like different methods of brewing as well. So, you know, like pour over, French press, mocha pot, cold brew, drip, whatever else, and be able to taste the differences. And so this brings my next question. What is your favorite method for brewing? Like, or at least right now, like what's your daily driver?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So for me, and the whole reason why I'm here is that it's always been espresso. And I've loved espresso ever since I had my first espresso. And my first espresso was like not even like a real espresso. It was like an espresso campana, which is espresso with whipped cream on it. And I had that like when I was younger, and I was like, oh, it tastes so good because it had all this whipped cream in it. And then when I ordered an espresso without it, I was like, whoa, this is really strong. But you know, I've always been a fan of espresso. And I started getting into this because, you know, I before I was a home enthusiast for coffee, had all the different pour over methods, had all the French presses, AeroPress. There's like a dozen different pour over methods, but I couldn't do espresso at home because it was just, you know, cost prohibitive to have like a machine. Then one day when I was working long enough, I could buy like a little Breville, but it just wasn't the same as what you can get at a really nice cafe because they've got like, you know, the super special machines. So that's how I got into it. It was just like, it just kept escalating where I need to get a cafe so that I can have the machine that I want to do the espresso that I want. But yeah, espresso is my first love. So I start off the day every day with an espresso. And although Italians have it at night after dinner, but I'll start every day with an espresso. And midday, I'm always grabbing a cold brew, which is my other love. And yeah, espresso and cold brew are my thing.
I have another comment. I'm also cold brew squad, at least when it's warm. It's kind of like whenever I turn my heater back on, then I switch to like pour over or French press. And then whenever I turn the heater off, it's cold brew. But I have an idea, there's something that I've heard before other libraries do that have social work programs. They do things like, I don't know what it's kind of like what Rosa put in the chat, like a coffee talk, coffee and conversation, like where it's just a community event. You host it at the library, you have coffee, and it's really just about informal like relationship building.
Yeah.
I'd love to work on that together with you. Maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, and like that goes to some of the community stuff that we're doing. Like, you know, we'd be happy to sponsor coffee for stuff like that. And we're always doing little things where we're, you know, sponsoring coffee for folks. Like, you know, for example, Recovery Cafe is a really great space in downtown San Jose. They, you know, they provide jobs for those in transition and do training. And we actually just donate coffee to them every week. So, you know, that's one of the things that we do on the community side. But we're always happy to sponsor coffee for things that bring people together.
That's amazing. I can tell we're going to be friends.
Hey, Frank, I think since we're talking about coffee and then we're also a library hosting this, I would like to ask, what is your favorite book that you like to read, or what was the last good book you have read?
Okay, this is that's a good question. That's a good question. And you know, I'm gonna be honest, because you know, ever since I got into this food business, I've been kind of just you know, ongoing struggle for survival with everything that's been going on. So I haven't read lately. And you know, my wife is the one that like reads all the time, and she reads for fun. And for me, most of my reading has always been required reading. But yeah, it's a tough question to put me on the spot, because I was trying to
my bad.
it was like, what was the last book that I read? And I was like, oh man, I don't want to say it was for school or something, you know, because that would have been like forever. But
What does your
probably-
wife read?
Oh, I'm not going to embarrass her with that too. 'cause I
Okay.
have a book
Trying to
list.
throw you a lifeline.
But it was probably like a barista book. Oh, actually, you know what? It was the Camellia and Sinensis tea book. So Camellia Sinensis is like one of the, you know, most highly regarded like tea companies in the world, and their book is actually like the #1 book in the tea category on Amazon right now, or one of the top 5 books on that list. And I've been trying to educate myself more on tea, just because you know, I mentioned earlier that the cost of coffee is going up like 100%, but the cost of tea for us has only gone up like maybe 10%. So I'm just trying to think of like, oh, can we do more interesting things with tea? So yeah, I'm reading the Camellia Sinensis tea book. It has like a great history on teas and like the differences of teas, and also like more backstory of how some teas ended up in certain regions.
Yeah, I was just looking for it on in our catalog, and we don't seem to have it. So I'll have to, you know, make sure that we get
Gotta
the book
suggest
for the
it.
library. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's one of the few books I actually own, like a physical hard book of. But yeah, it's a good read.
Nice. Yeah, and also don't sweat about not reading. Even, you know, library professionals like barely have time to read for fun, so don't feel bad.
So I got one last question. At least maybe we could wrap it up here. But Frank, if you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self anything, any advice, what would that be?
That would be to not wait, to not waste time. Like anything that you want to do, like go ahead and do it now. And this is, you know, it sounds so cliche because like anyone who's like of a certain age will start to realize that. But yeah, I mean, like if there's something that you want to pursue, there's no reason to wait. And if you don't know all the answers, but it's what you want to do, you can figure it out as you go along. But don't wait until you're ready, because that moment may never come. So just whatever you want to pursue, whatever your passion is, you know, just start. Starting is the hardest part. And it always starts with a small step. And that's one of the reasons why you know, I'm working on this project with Oatly now too, because you know, I'm trying to show that it starts with small things, small steps. And you should start doing it every day, and it becomes easier and easier.
I like that. I like that. It's really good. Just do, just like Nike, right? Just do it. Just go ahead and go.
Exactly. They had it right.
Absolutely.
They had it right.
Yeah, they had it. They had it all along. Well, I think I'm not sure if we have any more questions, but if we do, please ask. But thank you, Frank, for joining us and sharing your story. And can you give us the address of where your store is so people who would like to visit can find it right away?
Yeah. Our cafe is at 499 South 2nd Street in downtown San Jose. Cross street is William Street. We're open 7 days a week. On the weekdays we open till 4. On the weekends we open till 3. Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for, you know, hanging out this afternoon.
Yeah,
and also one thing I'll say is that, you know, we're very much focused on the community, and we always like give out coffee to like nonprofit events and stuff like that. If you're a nonprofit and you want to host a little coffee get together, you know, reach out to me, just Frank at Academic Coffee, and you know, I'm happy to connect and get you some coffee.
Awesome. That's so kind, Frank.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week for our final speaker series for the month of May. I believe, right? Next week? Yeah.
Yes.
To
Awesome.
make sure. Thank you, everyone. Everyone have a great
Thank
day.
you so much.
Bye, guys. Have a
everyone.
great day.